Today's episode is brought to you by the Vegas Beer Guys and the Sounds in Cinema podcast. The Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language. 'Cause we learned it from you, Dad. Hello and welcome to the Everything Sequel podcast. This is the Twilight Saga. Today we're doing Breaking Dawn Part 2. My name is Michael Shumps of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, your friend and mine, the man in love with the Twilight Saga, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Hello, Tom.
He is unusually well preserved. I gotta say, I really did not expect the man that Bella was meeting in Seattle to be Bunk from The Wire.
Well, I know. I've got a note here that says, "The Bunk!" Exclamation point.
I mean, you know, if you had me guess who she was gonna meet, it would have been days before I came up with Bunk. Not only because there's like 3 black people in the entire saga, but
Right.
But also, but it's interesting because I mean that's just a a cameo, a nice little optional pleasure, but it speaks to a larger trend that I see in this movie of the Twilight Saga trying to poach some of the viewers from HBO's True Blood.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's
Eventually Mr. Robot.
Yeah, but because absolutely. Because True Blood is, for those of you who've never heard of it, it's kind of like a adult, sophisticated doppelganger of Twilight,
Right?
In many ways, and it's interesting. There's lots of moments in this movie where I felt that they were trying to emulate the look and feel of a HBO series, in a way that the other movies in this
Just
franchise,
this movie, you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, there's
Okay.
a general sense of like we want to class. I think when you put Bunk in your movie, you want to class up the joint a bit.
A little.
But
That's
just
why
like-
you call Wendell Pierce.
Right, exactly. But I also got the sense that they wanted it to sort of they wanted it to be on the same level as like a really good HBO miniseries on the subject.
Well, they clearly must have had that on their mind somewhat, because Bill Condon is back, as we've previously discussed, and he is, of course, an Oscar winner for writing. Like the second movie, this bumps up the Rotten Tomatoes meter, Tom. This movie's at 49%. This movie's the high watermark for the series.
That's interesting.
They got that wrong by, I think, 1%. What did we say was Eclipse, 48%?
Yeah. But parity across the two.
Yeah,
two
so
movies.
you got 2 of them sitting in the 20s and 2 of them sitting in the high 40s, which to me is interesting. This movie, highest budget,
I don't get the
120
sense
million.
that they get better.
What's that?
That would suggest that these movies
Right.
sort of climb every time. I don't think that's the case.
That's not the case. No. So a budget of 120 million, opening weekend of 141 million, 292.3 in the USA, under Eclipse, which I think had the most in the USA, 300 million of the sequels at least. But worldwide, this is the most, 829.7 million.
to be expected for the last in the series, I suppose.
Yeah, probably.
And I guess the one that travels around the most geographically too.
Is that right? I mean,
well, yeah, we go to a bunch of different countries in this one.
that's true.
I mean, briefly.
Yeah, I was
obviously.
going to say, but it's brief.
Yeah, but so far we've only been to Rome, right? And Rome and Rio.
And Rio, right.
Rome and Rio. But now we're in Egypt, the Amazon.
Right.
London, of course, because it's 2012.
Right.
And
of course.
there's a new Bond film out, and it's an Olympic year.
And it's an Olympic year, I was going to say.
You couldn't move for movies going to London in 2012.
All right, well, I ranked this as my second favorite in the series, with the caveat just because of Michael Sheen and his
He's very
ridiculous, over-the-top, wonderful acting, which I
Yeah.
adore. And
He never
this,
phones it in, does he?
no, this one was last on your list, though, isn't it?
I think it is,
Yeah.
But I mean, to go back to those Rotten Tomato ratings, you know, there's so little between these movies for me.
Yeah.
And I've narrowed it down to a few, as we said in the last episode, shit the bed moments.
We have to choose which shit the bed moments we hate the most.
Yeah. Although I feel I also feel that this is the least in I think opposite to what they're trying to do because this seems more ambitious in lots of ways.
Uh-huh.
But I actually think that makes it the least remarkable of the movies. So I think that aspect, the I guess
Because
the epic,
you're saying
the
they
epic
failed?
scale of it
Okay.
they don't really pull that off. It just, for me at least, it feels like overcomplications.
Well, I'll completely admit that it does not have a Ben-Hur feeling, if that's what you're talking about.
Well, yeah, but I mean, this
is not Lawrence of Arabia.
No, but I thought that, like, when I realized that this movie would involve more vampires than we've seen so far, I thought, okay, that's good, because I don't think we've seen enough vampires yet.
Uh-huh.
And then by the end, I was like, that's too many vampires. Too many.
Because they're all just milling about in the Cullen house.
The Irish vampires, I was like, that's too many. The Irish vampires who don't speak. I was like, you've got too many characters, guys.
You sure this isn't just a residual hate for the Irish?
No, I'm not, what's he called? Nigel Neal, writing Halloween 3.
There you go. Oh, that's fantastic.
But whoever wrote this movie hates the Irish too.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Because they look like, they look like, they look racist. And apparently what distinguishes them from other vampires is their thirst. I mean, you couldn't really get a clearer
idea of
drunk stereotype.
Right.
And it's like, it's they're in the movie for minutes, so it's efficient, but it's, appalling.
Oh, fuck. These movies.
Yeah.
You love them all.
Hey, so I want to qualify this a little bit, because I don't. Right. I mean, you've been saying Twilight lover, in love with the Twilights, and you know what? I mean, the stuff about these movies I love, but to me, it really is more about.
You've declared them all good movies.
It's really, to me, all about fascination. Like, there are certain cultural properties that I have a fascination with. I've already made the Velveeta comparison. Lifetime movies. You said that. I put that in the same bracket. It's like not quite a thing, but also not a thing. Like, I'm obsessed with any cultural property that's like that.
Right.
Like reality shows like 90 Day Fiancé. It's like, it's not like a real documentary, but why can't I keep my eyes off it?
Because so I just wanted to say it's
qualify that a
bad.
Little bit. I'm aware of all the pitfalls.
All right.
It's just that my fascination overrides that every time.
But this does have, referencing back to our introductory episode, our ranking episode, this does have one of our favorite lines, right? The Loch Ness Monster line.
The Loch Ness Monster line, yeah.
Fucking great.
Yeah, it is great.
And that's right at the beginning of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But that's after Baby Mama Vampire Hunt, which was a bit of a CGI nightmare, but
it is. I had a note that said, was 2012 just a bad year for CGI.
Right, yeah.
Because I was like everything it just looks a little off.
Well, and so
like it wasn't working that day or
right.
something.
Because all it does for them narratively is gives them the opportunity to, and I guess it's a pretty solid joke, but she talks about how he can read minds, and they just have a cover line for why she's not murdering everybody, because there's been nothing but 4 straight movies of talking about when you're a new vampire, you're
Right.
just a bloodthirsty monster. You can't control yourself at all. And then Stephanie Meyer has obviously had to, retcon that shit. So so that's her superpower, is she does not kill the man who's free climbing on the side of a mountain.
And I also had the thought, it's like, I know it's like surely parkour is now fading from popularity by 2012. It's like we don't need to have it anymore. Especially when it's not actually and it only really works when it's the person doing it that you see. If it's just an effect, I could be seen doing it. You can just digitally move my body around, But also, it's like because of that exact problem, with the storytelling and consistency, it kind of feels like she just forgot about her bloodlust for a few minutes,
right?
At exactly the right moment,
in the precise moment.
So, yeah.
But again, it just sort of lends itself to the it really in the whole series. Like, this series is just making shit up as it goes.
Yeah.
To suit itself.
But
it doesn't make me mad. Like,
your memory of the original is better than mine. Do they ever talk about how vampires can go out in the sun with seemingly no problem?
They, near as I can remember, he just takes his shirt off and his sparkly diamond, and he's just showing Bella, and I think she just says, "Oh, it's like diamonds." It's very romantic.
Yeah. So I guess if that's your baseline of vampires walking around in the daytime, pretty much all bets are off mythologically.
Yeah.
Because they don't. I think it's Bram Stoker's Dracula where they have that really clunky piece of exposition that says, but vampires can come out during the day. It's well known. Bullshit.
Right.
You wanted them out in the day. That's what
you wanted to film day.
I wonder how, in the end, I wonder how much Bram Stoker's Dracula could be seen as like an inspiration for this, because that movie to me really turned the tide in the vampire genre towards romance, as being like as being like one of the draws of the vampire story in a way that I don't think it had necessarily been before.
All those 2 kind of Transylvanian vampires they're not very romantic in this movie.
Oh, the Russians.
Yeah.
You mean the Russian vampires who want to kill what they call
Volturi.
Italian scum?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Even though they look, sound, and act more Italian than anyone.
Yeah, exactly.
And any of the Roman vampires. Makes zero sense.
But even though they're supposed to be Russian, you get that very sense. You get that really like classic Dracula voice coming from them.
Is that what that was supposed to be?
I mean, it sounded like it to me.
It sounded like
because there were times when I was hearing this.
Oh. It sounded like the chef Tony in Lady and the Tramp to me. It's a nicer day to make a pizza. That kind of... That's what it sounded like to me.
Well, once again, I mean, we're still kind of dealing with, Ravage misunderstandings.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
So we're still dealing with who's the cousin? What's that character's name?
I love that 80s sitcom. Who's the cousin?
You know who I mean, though.
Rose?
Maggie Grace's character.
Oh, Maggie Grace.
Irina.
Yeah. Well, we again, like, you know, she was strategically placed in the last movie, shown, like, we knew she was going to stir up trouble at some point, right?
Right.
But it's not a misunderstanding. They did kill her cousin. What's his name?
Well, no, the misunderstanding in this one is she sees the child,
Right.
like, and sees, you know, what is it? Renesmee?
Nessie.
Sees Nessie, how old? 7?
Oh.
And she was just born the other day, so now she thinks that we're dealing with, what is it they're upset about? I can't even fucking remember what the Volturi
They're
are
upset
about,
because
Tom.
they think that she's, you know, they think that she is like the homunculus golem baby, right?
I was gonna say they're upset that she's immortal, but they're all immortal. Why are they upset?
It's a challenge. It's a challenge to their power base.
All right, fine.
I think. But yes, we're still in this sort of web of misunderstanding.
I think were they upset that she would not be immortal, so she'd be a mortal vampire? Is that what they're upset about?
I don't think so. I think they see her as a threat, and they think that she's going to destroy vampire society as we know it.
I think something has to do with the age, because they have the evidence they bring at the end of the movie from the fucking Amazon. It was like a thing that he stopped aging.
You may be right. I just thought that was for Bella's benefit, knowing that she wasn't going to have to live without her child for thousands of years.
Right.
But either way,
all right.
It all works out fine.
That's what this movie's about, everyone.
Yeah, it all works out fine. And we get to see a big battle where everyone dies. And somehow it still works out okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that was the right call narratively for this movie.
I'm going to save it for the end, but I have questions about the battle for you, but we'll keep
it. Was a vision, Mike. It was a vision. It wasn't
I
real.
know.
It was a vision.
It's one of my questions.
I have questions about visions. I don't have any questions about that battle.
I know you.
I understand I understand. You know, I've seen Final Destination.
Yeah.
I know everything there is to know about the Vision walk back after seeing 5 of those movies.
Wait, I've got it. The
What?
Volturi think that it's an immortal child. You can't be. So they think that the child's not growing. That's what they think.
They think.
Do I have that?
Well,
right?
I don't. Why would that be a problem for them?
I don't know.
If the child's not growing,
I think it's just against the rules. I have a note here that says, "Volturi think immortal child."
right.
I think it's the child part they don't like.
Okay.
Anyway. So we have, at the front of this movie, we have the piece of narration that tells us that Bella won't be the bloodthirsty monster that she's supposed to be as a youngling.
Right.
And we can see that Nessie's growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get their new house.
Right. Yes.
I have questions about this new house.
What? Why you always so have so many questions? They're just doing all the milestones of a married couple. You know, marriage, sex,
That
baby,
part makes
house.
sense, but I'm just saying this house looked like the vampires took axe to the middle of a forest and just built a house not near a road. Like that house looked like it was on the side of a mountain with like no plumbing
Yeah.
possible.
Mm-hmm.
because there's no road to it.
Right. Well,
These are practical questions I have, Tom.
does that matter when
To vampires, I guess they don't poop, so it doesn't matter.
When you're two vampires and you're the the stepfather of your child is a wolf, you're probably okay, right? To not have a road around.
You're not worried?
Yeah.
All right, fine.
No,
All right.
it's yes, it's not. What do you think about the vampire sex?
Oh, I have too much to say about that.
Vampire on vampire sex, I should say.
I'll tell you what. You pose the question. I'll answer it when we come back. Right after this, everybody.
We'll be as fast as vampire sex, people.
There you go.
I like to think I know something about beer, but nowadays even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day you had one, maybe two craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need, the Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They'll try new beers, they'll tell you about beer. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Tom and I are here discussing the Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn Part 2, the 2012 film directed by Bill Condon. When last we left you, Tom was asking about vampire sex. Here are my thoughts.
Oh, okay.
I think I told you this off air.
More than one thought, wow.
Or did I tell you this on air? I can't remember when we discussed the fact that this movie, I guess it was the last movie, was almost rated R.
Yeah.
Because of the thrusting of Kristen Stewart. And then in this movie, I mean, all you see is just sort of, there's like a music montage of sex, isn't there? All I remember is her afterwards saying, boy, you really were holding back before, weren't you?
Mm.
Which to me just means like they're just having good, strong vampire fucking.
Yeah.
And more power to her.
Yeah, but what we see is like human sex, but in bullet time.
Yeah, that's true, right?
Which it kind of, which for me raised a lot of conceptual questions about vampire sex.
Go on.
I guess more conceptual questions about what we see as non-vampires watching vampire sex.
Mm-hmm.
Because prior to this movie, you know, and I can't overstate this enough. This is the first movie in which Bella is herself a vampire,
right?
And it changes everything. And so far, we've only seen her have sex with a vampire, but this is a vampire having sex with a vampire, and yet they're both going fast. But so what I'm saying is, whose perspective are we seeing this from? Because if we're seeing it from
their perspective, Tom,
it shouldn't be fast. It should just feel normal. It should just be their normal speed. But we're seeing it. I guess that's saying that, you know, we're not vampires and this is how.
Yeah,
it would
they
look
do the
from
same whenever
outside.
they're running, though. What did they do the blur thing during the thrusting?
I interestingly don't have a note about that
Because I don't remember that.
Yeah, so that was interesting to me, but it was also interesting because I guess so. Bullet, like bullet time is like slow and fast at the same time, isn't it? It's like fast, slow, fast, slow.
Right.
And
it's slow, spin fast, slow.
Yeah. And True Blood, which we've already talked about, like, is it like the I mean, you say that you said that they're trying to have as little sex as possible here, so they can kind of keep it on the on the right side of the R rating. True Blood is exactly the opposite.
Oh, right.
It's literally like
everybody's fucking everybody.
The pilot episode is like just like vampire drilling, and it's like it's like. Like someone working on a,
piece of granite.
Trying to get through concrete.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that, that variation on it. And I wonder how much this is like the safe alternative to that kind of vampire drilling we get in True Blood. All I know is the people who made this have seen True Blood, and that they wanna they want to speak to that, but they also want to be
romantically.
Yeah,
because this is all through the lens of.
That's it. Yeah, it's like lust versus love.
Yeah, this is all through the lens of a lace slip.
Right. And it's one of the things I always like about all these movies is that despite ongoing plot tensions, they let the central couple have their intimate time. I like that.
Yeah. And
they never, in every other movie series you would be like building and building, but this series is never afraid to pull back from whatever is going on externally and just let the couple have romantic time.
Yeah.
And that's nice, because that is distinctive.
And so, as I understand it, because like not as I understand, but as I remember, because the front half of this movie is first they have to prove that Nessie is just a regular human child, right? Like to the family. Mm-hmm. She's growing at an alarming rate, but she's human.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's all just calm down. And so the Volturi are, I think I had that right. They're upset that she's human but immortal.
Right.
And then
she's from Zeist. She's a Zeistian. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, Highlander 2 watch along.
Oh yeah. But she's growing at an alarming rate, but she's going to stop growing in about 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
She'll just be an adult quickly.
Yeah.
And then she has a regular life, right?
But as far as we know.
All right. So again, big misunderstanding. The Volturi are gathering themselves, their army. And then the Cullens decide they will gather an army in case they have to fight.
Yeah, but they're going to try diplomatic relations first.
There's some political theater in this one that I kind of enjoyed. I kind of enjoyed the Senate-like hearing on top of the snowy mountain.
Definitely. It also reminded me, well, certainly when they set Maggie Grace on fire, it reminded me of The Crucible as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Like a kind of witch trial. But yeah, and I like when we'll talk about the battle in more detail later.
Sorry,
I like that when it does come, it's like trench warfare, so it's like people standing in two orderly lines.
Yes, right.
And then and occasionally attacking each other.
Right.
Very, very civilized.
What I also like about the Maggie Grace moment is that she like from quite a distance too.
Mhm.
Not maybe not quite as far as she was on top of the mountain when she first saw the child,
Yes.
but enough distance to not be able to tell that she's human instead of a vampire. But
Right.
she still has the moment where she just sort of mouths to her family, "I'm sorry."
Yeah.
That's the level of misunderstanding that this battle is taking place for.
Yeah.
Her just saying, shit, my bad.
And even though the plot is advancing exactly as Mike is describing, the baby is still digital.
Yeah. So let's talk about
Nessie is still a deep fake toddler.
the shitting the bed.
Yeah.
I think this is.
I
You said you couldn't
go
get
on.
over it, so that's why this is at the bottom, right? Because you could not get
Yeah,
over
well,
the
this is a big
deepfake
part of
baby.
why it's a big part of why it's at the bottom, but there were ancillary reasons.
Okay.
I just think conceptually this doesn't work as well as the others for me. And it's always a risk when you open out, because it's such a the previous three movies that we've seen are such, they work on a domestic scale really well, and obviously this movie is trying to switch that around and have it be more expansive and global, and more of a kind of.
But it also means we have to spend a good solid 40 minutes introducing ourselves to vampires in pairs.
Yeah.
As they arrive to the Cullen house.
Right. And it's fine. These are all movies of two halves, in that the first half is kind of exploring character at a leisurely pace, and then they become more story concerned in the last sort of half or third of the movie, and this does that too.
Yeah.
But it's a big change in, we go from this very contained story that's in one place about one family to
it sprawls out. Yeah.
To a Bond movie basically, or it's like we're going everywhere we can in the world.
We're 30 minutes in, everyone.
Yeah.
I feel like you mentioned Bond before, though.
No, not in the series, I don't think.
Really?
Yeah.
I find that hard to believe.
So it's not my favorite, but I like going back to your to the retconning of Bella's newborn bloodlust.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I do like about this movie is it does have an answer for everything.
Right.
So I had a note early on in the movie. It's like I understand that his story is more or less unfolding in real time, but she needs to call her dad.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I was just like, I can't keep suspending disbelief that the parents haven't been informed that their grandchild has been born.
Mm-hmm.
And then, a little bit late, but not too late in the story, that exact thing happens. So
yes, I was just going to say, not only does that thing happen, but here's my question. Because at one point, Charlie sees the kid, and this is when is it still deep fake? Because she's
could be.
If
it's in the first 2/3 of the movie, it is.
She's like a 7-year-old child.
It's only not deep fake in the final scene.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So when she visits Charlie, deep fake, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Anyway, she looks like a 5, 6, 7-year-old child, and he says, "Wow, she's gotten big."
Fucking hell.
But this child is only like 2 weeks old to him, right? Do they ever answer that question? I don't remember anything being explained to Charlie. You're gonna see, because he's told. Oh, maybe he's told they adopted someone, but didn't.
Yeah, I think that's the workaround. But
don't they show him the baby at one point? in
I
the
don't
previous
remember.
movie? Like a literal baby?
It in terms of explaining things to Charlie,
Oh, well, there's a big
my
one.
my biggest question was,
Along the
well,
lines with the
again, they have an answer for everything. They come up with a compromise. It's like they're not gonna tell him what's going on, but they're gonna
tell him that Jacob's a wolf.
tell them that Jacob's a wolf.
By the way, they're not going
to stop him asking more questions.
Yeah, they're not. By the way, it's not they're going to tell him. It's Jacob takes it upon himself.
That's right.
Because once again, this is probably the biggest in the series of he deserves to know.
But he deserves to know the most baffling part of this that we're not going to follow up, but he doesn't deserve to know anything else that would actually explain what's going on.
Right.
Because I mean, I like that scene. You know, Jacob just strips, and Charlie's like, "What the fuck is going on?
What is happening? Stop it! Put your clothes on."
I like the way that unfolds again. Like Bill Condon's comic touch is actually quite nice. But at the end of it, I'm like, well, that, you know, from Charlie's perspective, that must pose more questions than it answers.
Yeah, because it's
and yet his reaction is to not ask any more questions.
Right, exactly.
As if I don't know. Maybe they're right. Maybe they're right in assuming that Charlie will
back the fuck off.
Yeah, that he's of such limited mental capacity that even the flavor of there being monsters in this world will just like shut his brain down.
But also, I'd like to add on top of it this: 1, he's a cop. 2, he's been learning for 4 straight fucking movies that people are being murdered in the woods by animals.
Yeah.
Then Jacob presents himself as a 10-foot tall wolf.
Yes.
Put 1 and 1 together, cop.
But yeah,
how is
right.
his next question not you? Or have you been murdering people in the woods?
Oh, I see. Yes.
That whole plot line forgotten.
But
it
movie. Also seems like he's put like 1 and 27 together, and
to
he
get
kind
56.
Because it's sort of like he doesn't get that aspect, the very simple aspect of, oh, it's been wolves. I think even someone tells him it's been wolves.
Right.
But because Jacob turns into a wolf in front of him, he's like, oh, my daughter is a vampire married to a vampire with a vampire kid. Like, he seems to understand that from Jacob turning into a wolf, which I gotta say is a bit of a leap mentally.
Wait, you mean like you think he literally knows that?
Well, yeah, because there's this unspoken understanding that, oh, I see.
Yeah, but
on.
It's more like because.
But why would? That's why I mean.
The very next scene after Jacob reveals himself is him finally getting to see Bella. He just thought she was sick and dying. He knows. And I believe that's the scene where he sees Nessie as a child, and they said, we adopted her.
But he doesn't buy it. He's suspicious of that.
You think?
Yeah,
at one point he asks a question.
They play it as if he knows something's up.
He asks a question, I think, to Bella. He's like, you're normal, right? You're not like a wolf? And she's like, yeah, Dad, of course. Like, they're all just... trying to make sure she doesn't eat her father because she's got super strength and super desire. But again, she can control it.
She can control it. Yeah, that's another problem.
It's just, to me, it's just the most wonderful black hole where the narrative goes, where people forget things that they should know and just drop it. That I find it so ridiculously delightful.
And then the movie tries to distract us with a lot of exotic vampires.
Yes.
From far off places. Which, you know, as far as smokescreens go, that's pretty good.
Amazon vampires.
Yeah. Cockney vampires, Irish vampires, Egyptian vampires. Russian vampires. It's a surprise to find out that there are vampires that are even more emo goth than Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson in the world.
Right.
Also, I mean, the elephant in the room here, we've been burying the lead. Bella is a vampire now.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Absolutely. But she was born to be a vampire, Tom.
Well, she certainly has more color in her face as a vampire than as a human, which is
It's alarming.
Yes. And then, I mean, the other sort of element that we're getting into here, once the vampires have assembled, and I don't
Vampires assemble.
I don't think the reference to Avengers is unintentional. They basically go through like a superhero training section.
Yes.
That Jacob even refers to as Jedi training. So and each vampire has like a special
power, right?
X-Men style skill,
and she's trying to develop hers. Bella,
yeah,
that is.
So it's, I mean, we've started to get into the Avengers, the MCU
universe
stuff, right? At this point, right in history, it started.
Oh yeah.
The Star Wars movies starting to,
gear up.
Could gear up. So, I don't think these are accidental acknowledgements.
Interesting.
At one point, like, they say, she's a shield, all right?
Yeah, right.
And that made me, like, and this is where we're at a disadvantage in not having read the books, because at this point you could determine about, did they just slap on a bunch of MCU and Star Wars references to kind of capitalize on the superhero craze of the time, or is this something that was ingrained in the books?
Yeah, right.
About but the vampires were kind of like X-Men mutants or Jedis. Like, is that something that came?
It seems like something from that was probably deep part of the mythology of the books to me, right?
Yeah, and I don't think we've mentioned it on this show, but like, the origins of Twilight is fan fiction.
Mm-hmm.
It's 50 Shades fan fiction.
Yeah.
I mean, which is astonishing for so many reasons, because given how chaste the storytelling is, compared to but I mean, I suppose, I guess in the honeymoon scenes and in some of the early parts of this movie, I see a little bit of that 50 Shades Sex in the City feeling.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break, one more break, and then we'll come back, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll finish up talking about Breaking Dawn Part 2 right after this. If you like podcasts like I do, boy, do I have a treat for you. You need to
stay on target
and check out the Sounds and Cinema podcast. Listen as your host, sound designer and music creator Tony Parham, and co-host, musical performer and sound lover Derek Hansen, D-Rock if you're nasty, and I am, discuss all things sound related to film, television, stage, and theatrical productions. They discuss environmental sounds, bioacoustics, dialogue, the nature of communication through sound, but as an added bonus, they drink beer and try to
stay on target.
Find them wherever you get your podcasts and listen to the pure mania of a man who can charitably be described as Doug, the dog from Up, and another man with a soothing and sultry voice trying to get that man to
stay on target.
That's the Sounds and Cinema podcast. Tune in and listen to the sounds they are creating just for you. And we are back once again, ladies and gentlemen. Tom and I are here finishing up the Twilight Saga with Breaking Dawn Part 2. All right, Tom, let's get to it, because there's a lot to talk about.
There is.
In this final battle.
Oh, okay. We're already there.
So, my first question to you is...
Uh-huh.
What
happened to Nessie's digital head?
Right. There's that. But...
Is that why the vampires are no longer scared of her?
Was this watching your first watching of the movie? Or had you seen it before?
I've seen it before.
On your first viewing...
maybe more than once.
Oh my God.
What?
That's fantastic.
Sometimes you want downtime to be downtime, not
I hear you.
think about a complicated movie time.
Well, there's nothing but easy problems to solve in these movies.
Exactly.
But solved by the most extreme measures, like full battles. But in this movie, I mean, let's just tell the audience, spoiler alert everyone if you don't know.
Yeah.
But the entire battle you see is a possible future and does not actually happen.
Vision.
It is a vision.
It's Alice's vision.
So, how big was that a disappointment on your first viewing?
Oh no. No.
Not at all.
Not at all.
On my first viewing it was, but it's made up for by Michael Sheen. Once again.
But is this...
I just liked the idea of, I think on our first viewing, it's kind of like, to me it's kind of like No Country for Old Men.
I can't wait to hear how you make this connection.
I was severely disappointed on my first viewing, because I hadn't read the book.
Right.
That we did not get to see the battle
mm-hmm.
between, what's his name? Sugar, and Lewin.
Yeah.
Oh, not Lewin. What's his name? Anyway, the character.
I think you're mixing your Coens there. But
yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, the folks. There's a folk singer and he fights an assassin. But yeah, no, yes, you're talking about storylines that don't coagulate in the conflict that
right. I mean, in that movie you have Josh Brolin and he's on the phone with Javier Bardem and he says, you don't have to come looking for me because I'm going to come looking for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like in that moment the Coens had made me a promise.
Okay.
And it was one that I did not get in that movie because he's dead, not even by Javier Bardem's hands. It's, by a different group of, gangsters. And that to me was severely disappointing. I went and saw it a second time in the theater and I calmed down a little bit and could appreciate it for what it was. And that's how I feel about this. Yeah. On a first viewing, I thought, oh, come on, it was great. First thing that happens is Carlisle loses his head. Like, it's fucking good stuff. There's actual loss. There's going to be shit that happens that the family's going to have to reconcile with. But it was all for
the time or the place for that kind of... That isn't the kind of time or the place for that kind of resolution. I mean, how many people would that disappoint who love this series?
But that's my point. It's like, so... It was like, don't worry, everybody. It's fine. They're all okay.
Yeah. That's the strength of these movies, though, is... They're, not too much bad happens to the characters that you love.
All right, fine.
And this, to me, is the perfect way of doing it, because you can at least...
see it?
You get the battle that you want, but there are no consequences to it. And they don't jeopardize anyone's happy ending. So, Again, completely in the context of these
I was
movies.
going to
What you're
say,
saying
that's
is
what you
absolutely
want
right.
for dramatic arts.
No.
No consequences.
No, not at all. But then, the first thing I thought of was the Final Destination movies, and that because this is the same plot device, the Vision walkback,
Right.
that we saw in those movies.
But those set off your movie, don't end it.
Yes. But yeah.
So that's the difference, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I can appreciate it,
I
but on a first
I
viewing, it made me, I was like, oh, fuck. But on your first viewing, you were like, yay!
I also like the fact that because they're able to walk it all back. And, first of all, how's that different from the Superman and what happens in those movies? But, which we love. They could let loose a little bit, like there's the earth cracks open, so there's a Wilhelm scream.
Right.
The music gets all Temple of Doom. It's like you can't really go that far into that territory if you're doing it for real. I don't think, or as enjoyably.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's no way you would kill all those characters like that. You would hold back a few, at least.
Well, I don't think so. You've got plenty to build on, which we'll be doing in our next episode.
Oh, it's all going to begin with them in a plane crash for you. They're all going to die anyway, just in an entirely different context.
It's a 10-minute movie.
Yeah.
They're on a plane to Rio, it crashes, roll credits.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not, anytime we're calling it a vision, but let's face it, it's a dream. Anytime you do that, you're in dangerous storytelling territory, and everyone will advise you against doing that. Visions are not a new thing in this series.
No, of course not.
So, that's not coming out of left field. The tone of these movies and you wanting to have a positive outcome for the characters after, whatever the conflict in the plot is resolved. That's part of this series too. So it's not out of place for me. It's maybe a bit of a gimmicky way to do it, but I appreciate that I appreciate that they're not wanting to end this on a dark note, because I think that would feel weird for this series.
It's so.
All
what
of this
is
did for
just
me.
another example of why you hate Harry Potter and why I loved it. I'm okay with the darker.
I am too, but just not here. But the biggest problem I had with it was was the sort of, well, it's not quite retconning of visions, because it's just confusion. I don't know if there's a confusion.
Well, what do you mean? Like retcon. The fact that they show
it's
her...
not your job to be as confused as Nigel is. Because visions start off as one thing, they turn into something else, and this scene complicates it even further.
Okay, yeah.
So as far as this is the timeline for how visions operate in the series. Mm-hmm. You can change them with your actions, but they're also party to your actions, unless they're fixed.
Right. What's so hard to figure out about that?
So I don't know what these films are trying to tell me about how these visions work, because it's different every time. But so that's the only thing that bothered me about this sequence, is they're not playing by their own rules. I think that's a worse crime than bad storytelling. Whereas I think that's probably where we differ. Yeah. Is that I think not playing by your own rules is a worse crime than bad storytelling, and you maybe think the opposite.
I think we've come to it. Yeah.
That's it. The podcast is done, guys.
I'm out.
You're welcome. Didn't even make it to 100 episodes. We figured it out. But I wanted to talk because I'm amazed I'm amazed that you haven't broached the topic of multi-part movies. Because you've got a lot on me. Copper.
You're right. So
I don't know what I'm just like, is he holding back? Like, is he gonna do a special episode, which is just like a court case?
So
the trial of Tom Stewart and the multi-part movies. Like, what are you holding back for, Mike? Do you not remember what I said?
Oh, I do. So you're right, because I've gone easy on you.
You've gone easy on me
because of how much shit you gave Harry Potter. And then when you found out that the first movie was like 3/4 of the book, then you really went ape shit.
Yeah.
I have no idea about these two movies with that book, so I can't, that was the only thing for me was I can't speak to the book as far as that goes. So I think that's why I was kind of laying off. But I mean, what say you about the 2-part? Because I remember when you said, the first time you ever brought up 2 parts, you said that just never works and you can't do it and you shouldn't do it. And I said, what about Kill Bill? And you said, well, okay, yeah, that's the one that
exception that proves the rule.
Exception that proves the rule. But so it can be done.
It can be done.
I absolutely think that Harry Potter does it better than these 2 movies.
I completely disagree.
Of course. So
no, not of course. I mean, I could feel that way and still like these movies better, but I think this is a stronger multi-part.
Why? Why?
Yeah. Because it makes way more sense turning. And I agree with you. We're at a bit of disadvantage because we don't know what the book, The Breaking Dawn, actually looked like. But, however, the way in which it's adapted, it makes total sense to turn these into 2 movies. They're 2 distinct movies.
As are Harry Potter, Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2.
No. As I said, nothing in that first movie, Voldemort goes from winning to winning. Nothing happens. It's 3/4 of the story. If you were briefer, you could condense it all together. It's just not like it's not. There's there's a
development of character that's not present in these movies, maybe for Bella.
There's a very clear division here. There is a time before and a time after. The time before here is before she becomes a vampire, when she becomes a vampire. The story, the Breaking Dawn one is a domestic story. The second one is an expansive international story.
Before school,
there are 2
after
completely
school.
separate storylines.
Before school, after school. MacGuffin looking for Horcruxes and destroying he who may not be named. He who must not be named. Now you're getting me so mad I can't even remember my proper lines.
It makes the division here makes total sense. However the book was, and maybe they juggle things around a little bit, as the sense I get, to make it fit into 2 movies. But as it stands, there's a very clear end point, and when you resume, you have an entirely different story to tell.
I'm honestly just giving you shit. I don't disagree with anything you've said.
But that in itself is very curious to me. That there is a lack of continuity between these 2 movies. As given how much New Moon and Eclipse speak to each other.
Yeah, I mean, we have talked about that, but
that it's almost absurd that these 2 movies have, apart from the post-credit sheen that ties them, that kind of
binds them
stitches
together.
them together.
Yeah.
That's really it. They're two entirely different storylines. I guess the way Irina is like reacting at the wedding is like foreshadowing what happens in this movie, but apart from that, there isn't really that much foreshadowing of what happens in this particular movie.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and again, we don't know if that's the case in the book too. But I cannot imagine. What I can't imagine is Kristen Stewart turning into a vampire within the frame of one movie. Like, I know both these movies can be tighter, and I agree with you, they should be like 2 90-minute movies.
Mm-hmm.
But if she were to start off the movie as a human, and by the time it ends, she's been a vampire for like 45 minutes, that'd be weird.
Oh, that's interesting. You might be right about that.
I don't know if I don't know. I mean, I think I don't really have problems with her as an actor. I don't think she's got that arc in her. I certainly don't think the people writing the movies will be able to manage that. So I like the fact that they're giving her the time to just come out of the gate as it's like I'm just a new character. And it's a new movie, so it doesn't feel weird.
It doesn't feel weird. All right, fine. I tell you what is weird.
Everything else in this movie.
Everything else in this movie. I mean, we have to talk about Jacob, his imprinting, and just
it's a great book.
Fucking hanging around a 7-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Asking.
They hadn't thought. I don't think they thought through the implications of that storyline. No.
It is.
No.
It is fucking rough. My note was, there's nothing okay about falling in love with a 7-year-old. There's just nothing okay with that.
Because I'm trying to justify what happens in these movies, my initial reaction was to say, in response to that, I was like, yeah, but she grows fast. That's not making it better.
It's not making
That's
it
exactly
better.
what a pedophile would say. Right? They grow up so fast.
Yeah.
You're arrested.
No, she's got an old soul.
Yeah. It's interesting because if you think about why that happened in the last movie, it was about plot convenience. Yeah. Basically, it was so that the vampires and the werewolves wouldn't still be at war, right?
Right.
So he imprints himself on her, and that's it. She's protected
and he has no
forever.
choice. And look, like in reality, we know that she's going to be a full-grown adult. In an actual 7 years, she looks like a 7-year-old, but she's not, it's very strange. But in 7 years' time, she'll be an adult.
It seems like the kind of storyline that Woody Allen would have written into the movie.
Absolutely. That's what I thought of. And I think they would have, I think they almost would have been fine if they didn't make comedy out of it. Because at the end of this movie, he looks over at Edward and says, "So should I call you Dad?" This is not a great joke when they're both looking at the 7-year-old that's in front of them when he says that.
Yeah.
Fucking shit.
Yeah. I agree. It's inexcusable, and my sense is they just didn't quite think it through, and they were stuck with it as a plot point.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't realize how pedophilic a plot point it would turn out to be. But I also object to it being used comically. I also object to them mining it for jealousy as like still part of the love triangle.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, if you don't want me, then I'll hook up with your kid.
Daughter. What the fuck?
Right? That said, I mean, our favorite line in the series comes out of basically Kristen Stewart reacting with the appropriate amount of anger to what Jacob did.
Right.
So Kristen Stewart in that moment, remember I compared her to like a rough drunk in a parking
That's
lot at like 2 in the morning. And I think that level of anger speaks to the fact it's like this really is, you really have crossed the line. So I think yeah. But then there's no reason for them to anyone to be okay with this at any point in the movie.
Right.
As they are.
All right.
Good. No, you're absolutely right. That's a really important. There's some things I can let these movies get away with because they're innocuous. That is not innocuous.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, all that anti-abortion stuff, fine. It's not fine. That's not fine. And we brought it up. It's not good.
It's not good.
Yeah.
Do you have anything left? The series in general, or this movie?
What do you think I have left?
Oh, we're gonna talk credits. Sorry, my mistake.
Hey, you're half right.
Credit check,
we're gonna
ladies
talk
and gentlemen.
titles
Brought to
and
you
credits
by
as well.
Tom Stewart.
We're gonna talk. We're gonna talk about. I'm your financial advisor. We're gonna talk about titles and credits too.
All right then.
First of all, are Lionsgate gonna get their grubby paws on literally every post-2000 sequel we do? I'm tired of the last film in the series being owned by Lionsgate. There we go. That's all I have to say about it.
All right. Tom will not work for Lionsgate, everyone.
The HBO
grave.
of it all. I thought the HBO of it all really came out in that very elaborate, stylized title sequence. Like it felt like, like a 6 Feet Under or a True Blood or one of those big things. The classy. Also, I don't know if we've talked before. I think we mentioned briefly Carter Burwell's score, my favorite in the series.
Okay.
I love the fact that because the landscape of this movie is so similar to Fargo, that you hear like notes of Carter Burwell's Fargo score in there. It's really nice. I really like that. Recap montage.
Oh yeah.
Second time in 2 movies. And then Edward asked to see the recap montage again. Like they're almost aware.
Right. That
of
is
the sequel
true.
Rules.
I did make a note of that.
And then the credits themselves, very soap opera miniseries style way of doing the credits at the end, with the classic head turn roll call.
Yeah. Right.
Which I thought was, if there's a stylistic level for this series, it really came out in that final credit sequence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Twilight is basically as like a soap opera miniseries. And then you get the last line and word of the book.
Yes, right.
Is seen on screen. And then when the characters get their credits, you see their introductions in the books.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's been this overall trend of trying to marry together the literary.
Well, I think it lends itself to
like
the romantic nature of the movies. It's just sort of romanticizing the books themselves, right?
Yeah, and earlier on in the movie, the Merchant of Venice is
right.
used as like a spy code
Yes.
at one point. So I thought that was a kind of nice touch, and again, it made me. I will never read these books, but but it sort of made me want this thing. It's like, oh God, how close are these movies?
Yeah, right.
If they're going that far to sort of say like they're one and the same. But apart from that, I just the nerve of Michael Sheen to tell another actor on screen to tone down his behavior. I mean, where does he get off doing that?
That's great.
He's oh, and that was the other thing, like the where, you know, obviously Michael Sheen is just, you know, makes everything more fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I did think one of the things that gave more justification to walking back that vision was that it gave the Michael Sheen's character, and the way he plays it, I think is very clear. It gave him the justification to walk away from the fight. Yeah. Like, up until that point.
And that even works dramatically.
Yeah.
Like, that makes sense for his character.
Yeah. And basically, so it's like, you know, they need a reason for him to walk away and not fight everyone, and that's a pretty good one, you know, because he just saw his head being ripped off in the dream. So, I like that. And having Michael Sheen there.
I think that's part of the reason I calmed down after a first viewing.
Yeah. I wonder if other people felt like you did.
Well, I was going to mention that earlier, that I don't know what the ratio is of like to hate on that. So people are going to have to tell us.
Like a jump the shark moment?
Yeah.
It could be a jump the shark. I mean, anything that where a dream rears its ugly head is gonna rankle people. Yeah, interesting.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to have to tell us what you think of the vision ending of Twilight Saga, The Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn Part 2. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Send us an email to everythingsequel@gmail.com. For Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions, I am Michael Shantz of the How Dare You Awards. That's it for Breaking Dawn Part 2. We're going to be pitching sequels next, Tom. Say goodbye.
I hated the first British invasion. I hate the second one even more.
Nice. Take care, everyone.